Hello, welcome to my channel and welcome to my website. My name is Daryl and this is Programming in Any Language. The website is www.black-duck.com. It's where you'll find all my videos organized in logical order. The contains method allows you to find a substring within a larger string. Basically, you enter a substring or a character and let the method determine if that substring or character is contained within the larger string. Basically, it returns a true or a false. The following video shows you how to set this up simply. It then follows up with a practical example of how you might search a database of movies to find several occurrences of a search. This is quite powerful. Take a look. We're going to look at the first of the substring methods, and this is the contains method. Basically, it'll find anything that's contained in a text if you search for it. As you can see on the screen, this method tells you if the substring you're looking for is contained in your larger string variable. If it returns a true if the substring is found, otherwise it returns a false. And the format is string var dot contains, and then you put the substring that you're using to search for inside the parentheses. You can also do it with the character on the bottom, as you can see down below. We're going to take a look at a demo of this thing, because you're seeing the true and false piece here, but actually seeing the format of it actually running is what you're going to see first. Then we'll take a look at a practical example of how this actually works. We're going to look at something like this. To find a substring program, you're going to enter a string basically in here, and then what you want to see if anything is contained within there. And basically this button right here will do all the work for you. So let's take a look at that. In fact, the code we're going to be looking at is we're going to read a string in and read the contain string in, and then we're simply going to ask it the question, does it string input dot contains this string? And we'll get a true or we'll get a false for it, basically, and that'll turn on a yes or a no button for us. So this is our program. It's pretty straightforward. I don't have much to show you in here other than the fact we have a substring title up on top here. I'm going to go to the top where we're actually labeling things. Label 1 is all it's called, so we're not going to bother with this. Same with this thing. Label 2, it's not going to be used in code, so we'll just leave it alone. This is our text input, and this will be the text input string. Someone will type something in here, and we'll gather with text input string and hold on to it. We also have a substring here. The text contains. The thing we're going to be looking for in this string is going to be sitting in this button. We have a series of buttons over here, or say the labels. We have a no that's invisible, and if we send it to the back, we have a yes that's also invisible. One of these two are going to say that whether or not it contained it based on this guy right here. This guy is not enabled. This does the contain button because we don't want to be able to press it unless we have something in here. So there's a text change method which is going to work here. We'll take a look at all that code in a bit here. So we've got a clear button down here and we've got an exit button. Let's take a look at that code and see what we've got here. If we look at the very, very top of this thing, we basically have a global area. We've got a string input string and a string contain string. These are the two pieces that are going to be bringing in the text from the text box that the user will type in. The input string and then something that's contained in it. We don't have nothing in the initialized components, so we'll just close this thing off. We have a button exit, which we were pretty well familiar with and how that works, so we'll close that off. We have a clear all. The clear all is going to put nulls in the input string. It's going to set the focus to that input string so the user can type something else in. It's going to put the two labels that are yes and no are going to be turned invisible, so they won't be seen. The clear button is going to call this function right here, and so is the form loads. When we actually start the program, this is actually going to execute. So I'm going to close these off so we don't see these things right now and kind of look at our code as what we actually have here. So basically, here's our text contain changed event. If you type something into the text box, into something right in here, that's going to cause this the button to be enabled. Does it contain be enabled? The labels contains no and the yes are going to be turned false, just like the clear button did. So we're not going to see those; they'll be invisible. So everything's going to be pending on what happens here in the does it contain method. We haven't coded that, so we're going to code that now. I'm going to double click on this. That gives us our button contains method we're actually going to be using here. So we'll take a look at this guy. What we're going to do is we're going to look at, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our two strings. We have our two strings up in the format area up on top here. We're going to grab these and get the text boxes in from the input. So let's do that. We'll say str input string is equal to txt input string dot text. That's going to call our reads first text box. Then we're going to str contain string is going to be equal to txt contains.text reads second text box. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually write the code that's going to make this all happen. We're going to say if str input string dot contains str contains string. And that's going to cause it to do something. Otherwise, it's going to do something else. And we'll put those pieces in here right now. If it does contain it, all we're going to do is we're going to say that we want the label contains dot yes dot visible to be equal to true. If it's not, we want LBL contains dot no dot visible to be equal to true. And that's it. That's all we have to do for our program. So this is going to be doing all the work. This is where that's actually going to go. We'll run the program real quickly. You can see it pop up. I'm going to put in the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog's back. Notice that the does not contain is not enabled. As soon as we type something in here, I'm going to look for the word dog, D-O-G. The button does turn on. I'm going to click on it, and it's going to go through that, and it does find it. If I happen to be searching for frog, it comes up with a no. If I look at the quick, it finds it. So that's all this thing does. It's fairly straightforward. So basically, all of our logic, our work comes from here. We read in those two strings, and we simply do this logic, which turns on the labels. All the work is being done in this button here. There's a little bit of setup work, obviously, as you saw there with how the labels are going to turn on and so on down the line. Next thing we're going to look at a practical example how this can be used, because obviously turning on labels is one thing, but how do you actually use this, or why would you want to use this? I've got here is a set of movies. Basically, this was pulled off, I think, a database and brought into Excel, and then exported or copied into a text file. So we've got years here in Sea of Grass. So each line is a single piece of text that gets read, and we're going to read this thing into a list in our program. And then once we have that in our list, we're going to be able to search on anything we want in here by using the contains, and it'll bring up every occurrence it finds into a list box so we can actually see what happens when we find these movies. It might look something like this. We're looking for the word she, and we do a search on it, and it comes up with anything with S-H-E in it. Sherwood Forest, she keeps, Revenge of Sherwood Forest, sheet, she wore yellow ribbon, Sherlock Holmes' secret, and the secret, here, Sherlock Holmes. Okay, that's where the S-H-E is coming from. And it drags in the dates as well. So you've got something that'll find your movie. It comes on and tells you if it matched it or if it didn't find something. So we're going to try and write this thing and get it going. And I've got this coded up ahead of time so we can kind of take a look at this. So what I've got here is I've got much of the code written so we can bring all this stuff in. I'll explain all that to you. But what we're interested in is the search button. And like the last demo you just saw, we're going to have an entry button right here, an entry text box, where we're going to put in what we're actually searching for, and then we're going to have a button that we're going to search on, and that search button is going to look something like this. It's going to basically use a loop that's going to go through the list that we're creating and then check to see if the particular occurrence in the list that we're sitting on as we go through the loop one step at a time contains our search string, she, Tarzan, whatever you want. And then if it does, it's going to add that particular item to our list box. So we actually have it sitting there. So we might find many, many occurrences of something. We might find nothing. So if we find nothing, we're going to take a look at that list box. And once we've done our search here, we're going to say if the count is less than or equal to 0. And if it is, we're going to say no match found. Otherwise, we're going to say matching item displayed. Now, this is the guts of what's going to be doing our search for us, but the program is obviously a little more extensive. So let's take a look at that. What I've got here is our movie search screen. And like the demo program we just saw a little while ago, we have a couple labels on here, and I'll bring this up to the property so we can see what they're actually called. This is called label 1. We're not going to use it in code. We've got a text box sitting right here. This is text search. This is what we're going to want to be looking for. And we have a search button, which is not enabled. It's false. And the text search area is going to actually turn this thing on when it happens. We can look at that code real quickly and see that by double click on the entry search button. There's our text search. It's bringing in the text and it's enabling the button. So we're doing that for it. The search button we haven't coded yet. That's what we're going to be doing to actually do the search for itself. We have an LBX movies. This is a list box that's going to contain the movies that we find if we do a match or find a search. Our actual set of movies is going to be sitting out in a list that's invisible after we read in this text box and bring that in. So that's going to be sitting in here. And this label will show up, which I believe is invisible. It is invisible. And as soon as the movies are loaded, this will say the movies have been loaded. And then this will replace it by doing a found or a not found for our searches. Our clear button looks something like this. It's basically going to clear the text search area. It's going to clear the list box completely. It's going to set our focus to the search. It's going to enable the search button and going to set our message label to blank so we see nothing in our message. Our exit button does what it always does. It closes the form and clears everything off. So basically, this is what we're sitting with right here. And now we have to actually write the code for this. But let's take a look at our global area first. And let's also look at how these movies are coming in. If we look at our program, we don't have much in the global area. What we do have is we have a list called LST movies. And it's a new list. And it's going to hold all the movies we bring in from the text. Those movies look something like this. They're all sitting here, as you can see. There's a ton of them. Quite a few. Going back, all different years. And not any. Yeah, it looks like they're kind of in alphabetical order. It looks like. But I wouldn't count on it. But that's what they are. They're going through this. So a bunch of movies here. Not every movie, but a bunch of them. Hundreds. So what we're going to do is we've got this thing. We want to bring all those movies into the list. That way we can search on it. We could also search on it coming in if we want to search on the file as it's being read. But that's pointless because we might want to do multiple searches. So bringing it into a list is an ideal way to have it happen. And then we can do a search on each one of those things. We've got an integer telling us how many we actually have. So once we bring in and read in all those movies, we're going to have a count. And we have the string search, which is going to be the searching mechanism or the text box or the variable that we're going to be searching for in those movies. Now, what you need to see is the form load. Form load is sitting right in here. And we've done this a dozen times too, so it's nothing very fancy. We are using the open dialog box so we can find any text box that we might be looking for there. But we've got this thing here, and all we're doing is we're reading the contents of the file. So we've got a string list record coming in first. That's being set. And we've got our try-catch. If something happens to our file, we end up doing nothing, just displaying an error and going from there on. So the real meat of the program is right in here, where it's actually going through. And again, if something happens where we don't find the file, we'll get operation cancel here. So we go to our real meat, which is right in here, where it's actually doing that. All this does, it opens the dialog box, the input file is created, and then we have a while loop, which actually brings in each record. Read a line of data, goes into the list. We keep adding it to the list. So this goes over and over again, creating that list of all those movies, hundreds of movies that we actually have here. Once that's done, we close the file. We grab the count to know how many movies we actually have there. And we display a message that we actually turn on the message that we found the movies that we're looking for, or our movie's been loaded. And our text search, we put our focus on there so the user can type in something in the search box. That's really all there is to it. Anything else in here? We saw the clear, the text search turns everything on, and we're basically in good shape there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our form, and we're going to click on the button that's going to do all the work, a text search button here. I'll double click on this thing, and there it is, button search. What we want to do is we want to be able to create that loop. So we're going to say for int I equals 0. I is less than movies.items.count I++. So that's our loop. We're going to go through the entire list of the movies we've got in there. And if LST movies sub I dot contains the str search key, we have a hit. And so we're going to want to say, if LBX movies I contains str search, we want to be able to actually go into the list box, LBLX movies dot items dot add list movies I. We're going to grab that movie that we found in the list and bring it into the list box. And that's all we have to do. If we don't find it, we don't care. We didn't find it. So we'll just go through it. Only when we have a find, we'll actually put it in here. Now, the only thing that's we have to do is, this is going to work perfectly fine. We wouldn't have to do anything else. But we would like to tell the user whether or not we didn't find something if nothing is found. Because if we see a blank screen, we wonder if the program's still running or not. So what we'll do down here is we'll actually go ahead, under this for loop, once it's done with the loop, we're going to say if LBX movies items.count is less than or equal to 0, LBL message dot text is equal to no match found. Of course, we're going to have an else down here, because if it is found, we're simply going to say LBX message dot text is equal to matching items displayed. And that's all we need to do. So this is going to be our guy that's going to do all the work when we actually run this thing. For int equal I equals 0, I is less than LBX movies. No, not LBX movies, LST movies. This should be LST movies count. That's good. What you want to look at is you want to look at the movies. You want to loop through the movies, not the list box. The list box has nothing in it, so it was going through 0 constantly. Now this thing should work just fine. We've got we got this thing created right now. We're looking at LST movies. So we're going to do a file save. We're going to do a start. It looks at my movies. I hit open on this thing. There's our movie. We'll try Tarzan. Do a search, and no match is found. So we'll do a clear. We'll do white. Do a search, and it did find two, White Christmas and White Heat. So it found those two. We can do a clear now, and we can look at war. This time all lowercase. And it does find something with WAR in it, beware. Edward, my son, WAR is sitting in there. If we had looked at war with a capital and searched on, we found War of the Worlds. Warning. Crime Doctor's warning. So uppercase and lowercase are important to this thing. So if you're looking for something and want it neutral, we're going to have to use some more text operating procedures to actually find war, whether it's in uppercase or lowercase. And we'll look at that down the road. But right now, this is a specific case to what you're actually looking for. Let's look at that she thing we saw before. There's a bunch of movies with SHE in it. Sherwood Forest, She Keeps, stuff like that. If you put in the word just an A in here, you're going to find a ton. Anywhere an A appears in your list is going to pop up on there. So that's how this contains works. It looks for the entire list and keeps comparing it over and over again to what you actually have there, and you can find many, many instances. So this is more of a practical example of how you can use the contains method. This actually is a good example of how a practical example of how you can use the contains method when working with text files. And we'll look at the begins and the ends, or the start and the ends next.
It is quite powerful, isn't it? It's good to see how these methods can be used in practical examples. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to use the website for easy access to all my videos. And if you get a chance, please subscribe. That way you'll be notified when something new is available. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.